Fade out 1. Fade in 3.
Pizza Flix Television Division presents
Suspense.
Dreadful dreams, George, all night long. I remember trying to wake up, but I couldn't get my eyes open. Did you ever dream that you were awake, but you couldn't get your eyes open, George?
Why, no, I don't believe I ever did. Why don't you call Dr. Brill?
Dr. Brill. Is there any use telling somebody that it's just their nerves when they're sensitive and high-strung and can't help themselves? I don't think Dr. Brill understands my kind of woman.
You know, dear, you're too... Oh, dear. Spare ribs last night. You're too sensitive, sweetheart.
I wish I could be like the others, George. I'd give anything to be able to talk about the roast, or how much it costs for the kitchen curtains. But it's just not me, George.
I know, darling.
You'll never know what it meant to me last summer when Mrs. Dean asked me to act in that play.
Yes, but you know, you took it too hard. The minute the curtain fell, you had a nervous breakdown.
Anybody want any more griddle cakes? Mr. Thomas?
Oh, I've had too many now. If I get sick, I'll know whom to blame.
Oh. Why, you haven't touched a thing on your plate, Mrs. Thomas. I'm just not hungry. Well, if anybody wants any more, there's plenty. Isn't she an old dear, George?
Oh, yes, she's fine. Well, I'm not going to make any money just sitting here. Now, you be a good little girl while I'm gone, eh?
I'm always a good girl, George.
Oh, dear me, I only got 9 minutes to make the 8:12. Bye-bye, dear.
Goodbye.
Oh, I shouldn't have had that last griddle cake. Bye-bye, sweet.
Well, he has got a good appetite. You like those Brazilians? What are they up to now? They thought up another new dance. And I just asked we'd learn the samba. The Brazilian capital of the... Just doesn't know any better. What do you think of that poisoning woman, that Mrs. Anderson? Don't tell me they found her. Found her. The police. All the police can say is that she's somewhere in the vicinity, and she may apply for a position as a cook. A cook, now I ask you. But wasn't she supposed to commit suicide or something? I vaguely remember something about a tweed coat floating on the bay. Oh, don't you believe it? That kind never commits suicide. I'm sure I don't know what we pay the police for. 1 whole month now since they found that nice old man stretched out on the linoleum. I heard that when somebody dies of arsenic poisoning, the soles of their feet get all dry and curly. Is that true?
Good evening, Mrs. Sutton.
Oh, Mr. Thomas, I didn't hear the front door open.
Oh, I didn't mean to startle you. I just came in for lace.
Oh, well, I'll put those flowers in water for you, sir.
Oh, thank you. A little surprise for Mrs. Thomas. How was she today?
Well, she had a bit of an headache, poor dear. I told her to go and have a nice lay down on the couch.
Oh, dear, dear. Well, I'll just go and have a look at her.
Well, I hope she's feeling better, sir. I've made her a nice steak and kidney pie. Oh, nice and light.
Oh.
Just the way she likes it.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I'll just go and see how our invalid is doing now.
Yes, sir.
Hello, sweetheart.
Hello, dear. You're home early.
Yes, dear. And how is my little angel face feeling now?
I had another headache today, George.
Oh, you poor, poor thing. Well, I have some news that ought to cheer you up a bit. I met Mrs. Dean today, and she said that people are still talking about the hit you made in that play Romance last summer.
How nice of them.
You know, you and her son positively brought the house down. Will you join me?
No, thanks, dear. We better not keep Mrs. Sutton waiting.
No. Say, she cooks very nicely, doesn't she?
Yes. Now, you see how foolish you were to be worried about her references.
Oh, yes, I see I was. Still, to be on the safe side, you know, you're supposed to...
I know. But if she'd been looking after a widowed mother all these years, she couldn't very well have references, could she?
No, but it wouldn't have done any harm to speak to the minister of her parish about it.
Well, what would the minister know about her cooking? After all, it's the cooking that counts. Dinner's quite ready to be served, ma'am. I don't think that pie ought to stay in the oven any longer. Thank you, Mrs. Sutton. George, did you bring those flowers for me?
Why, of course, darling.
Thank you, dear. That's very thoughtful.
There we are. Oh, sure. Oh, good, good.
Hello, operator. Operator, will you please hurry? This is an emergency. Hello? Hello, Dr. Brill. Dr. Brill, this is Mrs. Thomas. My husband's in dreadful pain. Can you come at once? I don't know. Thank you. I heard you telephoning, man. Is there anything I can do to help? My husband's awfully sick, Mrs. Sutton. Is it his stomach? If I only knew what to do. He's in dreadful pain. Perhaps I ought to get him some hot milk. Hot milk might ease him a little. Well? Hot milk always used to help my poor mother when she was ill. Mrs. Sutton. Yes? Maybe you better not. Maybe we better wait till the doctor gets here. Well, just as you say, ma'am. But please be sure and call me if anything happens. If anything happens, I want to be there.
In just a moment, friends, we'll see the second act of this evening's suspense story. But right now, during this brief intermission, Say, what's going on here? What happened? What is this, anyway? Uh-oh, there's Danny the Dip, and it looks like he's leaving with the loot. Looks like this is one time that crime might pay. Ah, but he won't get far, because Clancy the cop is right on the job. There goes Danny. And there goes Clancy. Huh. Looks like he's not going anywhere. Dead battery. Well, you know, friends, someone should tell him that one of the major causes of battery failure is extreme loss of water, and that can mean a dry, dead battery, just like Officer Clancy's. But there's an answer to that problem, and here it is. It's the famous Auto-Lite Stay Full battery, the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. Now, let me show you why. You see, in the ordinary battery, small particles keep flaking off the positive plates. So the ordinary battery has to have a large space in the bottom of the case to hold those particles. Otherwise, they'll get together and short-circuit the cells. But there's a big difference in the new Auto-Lite Stay Full battery. In the Stay Full battery, every positive plate has a fiberglass retaining mat protecting it, holding the active materials in place. You see, there's the fiberglass, the feature that gives a real advantage to the Auto-Lite Stay Full battery. Now, whereas the ordinary battery requires this much extra space below the plates, the Auto-Lite Stay Full battery doesn't need all that extra space. So we can take the extra space and use it to advantage by putting it up above the plates. Now, if we put electrolyte in both batteries, enough in each one to cover the plates completely, there's space left for extra water. But you see, an ordinary battery holds only this much extra water, whereas the Auto-Lite Stay Full battery with that extra space above the plates holds over 3 times as much water. That gives you over 3 times the liquid protection of ordinary batteries. And that's why you have to add water to your Auto-Lite Stay Full battery only 3 times a year in normal car use. Oh, and say, friends, here's another fact that I told Officer Clancy. In recent tests conducted according to the life cycle standards of the Society of Automotive Engineers, the Auto-Lite Stay Full battery was found to give 70% longer average life than batteries without Stay Full features. Yes, sir, it's a fact. So, why don't you take my advice and enjoy the extra assurance of an Auto-Lite Stay Full battery, the battery that needs water only 3 times a year in normal car use. Well, we had a new dependable Auto-Lite Stay Full battery rushed over to Officer Clancy's car, and it wasn't long before he was off in fast pursuit. Yes, sir, he caught up to the robber, and Danny the Dip was in a real dilemma. I want to tell you that Danny learned a lesson he'll never forget. You're always right with Auto-Lite. And now Auto-Lite brings you the second act of tonight's Suspense presentation. Ernest Truex and Sylvia Field in Suspicion.
Once more. Well, that was a nice performance you put on, George. What are you trying to do, send your wife into another breakdown?
It looks that way, doesn't it?
I said to him, George, please come to sleep. But he said, just a few more minutes. I have one more chapter.
It was a murder mystery.
Then I guess I must have slept for a while. Because I suddenly woke up and there he was, moaning.
Now, Ethel, you mustn't let yourself get excited. He's going to be all right. Now then, what have you been eating, George?
We had steak and kidney pie for dinner.
Uh-huh. And for lunch?
Well, Brooks and I went over to Luigi's, and we had pig's knuckles and sauerkraut.
George.
Haven't you any sense at all, man?
Well, you know you can't mix pork and sauerkraut together, George.
Ethel, I'm afraid your husband's going to live. Not that he deserves to. Now, you see that he takes this. And you get some sleep. I don't want to see those black rings under your eyes.
Yes, Dr. Brill.
Never mind the door. I'll show myself out. Good night.
Good night, Doctor.
Good night, George.
Good night.
Well, I hope you're satisfied, George Thomas. You nearly scared me to death.
Oh, I'm sorry if I worried you, sweetie. But you ought to know that you can't kill your old husband. What's that?
What?
I thought I heard something in the hall.
It's just Mrs. Sutton. She was awfully worried about you, George. She'll be so relieved to know that you're all right.
Oh, dinner too. That's all. That's all.
Yes, George?
Have you seen my trowel anywhere?
Why on earth should I see your trowel? Well, you're not going to work in the garden now, are you?
Yes, it's a wonderful day for it.
Well, don't stay out too long. Mrs. Dean's coming for tea.
Oh? You didn't tell me.
Didn't I?
No.
Well, I must have forgotten. Yes, Mrs. Dean's coming, and so is her son.
Oh, that's nice. I'll have to clean out this whole mess one of these days. Why is it? The thing you look for is always at the... What's this? Oh, for Pete's sake. Now, where's the car? Oh, that was pretty stupid of you, old boy. Even the tiniest grain under your fingernail can, I'd better warn Mrs. Sutton, too.
Oh, you don't mean it. You can't mean it. It's too preposterous. It's not at all preposterous, my dear. I said to them right out, if the community theater is going to produce Camille, there's only one person to play the part, and that's Ethel Thomas.
I think your mother's flattering me, Bob. She can't mean it.
Why, no, of course she means it.
Well, if I'm to play Camille, who is to be Armand? You, Bob?
Well, I don't know.
I wanted to talk to you about that, Ethel. I don't think I ought to let Bob do any more plays this winter. He's fallen so far behind in his law studies. I think there must be a girl someplace. Where's George?
Oh, he's probably still out digging in the garden.
Ethel, did you know they dug up the father?
What father?
The poisoning woman's father.
Oh, how dreadful.
Well, the terrible thing is that nobody knows what she looks like. She could be anybody. She could be a waitress in a restaurant, a maid. She could be your own cook.
Oh, what a dreadful thing to say about our poor Mrs. Sutton. Well, she doesn't look as if she could feed poison to a fly.
Mrs. Sutton.
Oh, you wouldn't have put my egg beater into your tool chest, would you, Mr. Thomas, by mistake?
Your egg beater?
Well, I thought it might have got all mixed up with your gardening tools. I was all ready to make a batter for a nice layer cake. Mrs. Thomas is very fond of layer cake.
Oh, yes. Well, it'll probably turn up. I just wanted to tell you that I won't be home for dinner tonight.
Oh, won't you, sir?
No, a little bachelor celebration. A friend of mine is getting married, so I'll probably be quite late. Oh, I should think 11 or 12 at least.
Oh, well, isn't that nice?
You'll take good care of Mrs. Thomas for me, won't you?
Oh, yes, sir. I'll take very special care of Mrs. Thomas.
Splendid. Oh, dear, I beg your pardon. Oh, no, it's my fault, I assure you. There we are. For he's a jolly good fellow, for he's a jolly good... What is this now? Uh-huh. Mm-hmm. Well, that's very thoughtful of you, Mrs. Sutton. Very thoughtful indeed. And we thank you. Yeah. Well, here's to you, Mrs. Sutton.
George, did you have a good time at the party?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, I had a wonderful time.
That's nice. Did Mrs. Sutton leave something hot for you? She said she would.
Oh, yes, she did. But I only drank a little. I wasn't thirsty.
Oh, it was that kind of a party, was it?
Yes.
Oh, do come to bed, George. I'm awfully sleepy.
Thomas.
Oh, good morning.
Aren't you feeling well, Mr. Thomas?
No, I'm not.
Oh, you haven't touched a thing on the table. Not even your orange juice.
No.
How about some nice fresh toast, sir?
No, thank you. I'm not very hungry this morning.
Oh, and there's Mrs. Thomas sleeping the nice morning away. How about me taking her some nice hot coffee, sir?
Oh, no, I wouldn't wake her. She didn't sleep so well last night.
Oh, what a pity.
Yes.
Would you like me to open your egg for you, sir?
Oh, no. No, thank you very much. I have an early appointment. I'm terribly late now.
Your hat, sir?
Oh, yes. I must hurry. Why don't they start? What are they waiting for? It's 4 o'clock. I hope I'm not too late. I was crazy to take a chance. I should have fired her there and then. Why didn't Ethel answer the phone? Where was she? Oh, please, don't let me be too late.
Something good. As I was saying, it's got so you don't dare eat a mouthful. You don't prepare with your own hands. I told the children, I said, I don't want you eating in the school cafeteria. You're taking sandwiches from home. I don't know what the police are about. They dug up 3 bodies already, just teeming with arsenic. Well, the soles of their feet were all...
Ethel!
Oh, George, you're back early.
You're all right. You're all right.
Well, of course I'm all right. What's the matter, George?
There's something that I must tell you.
Well, what is it?
Now, you're not to be excited, and you're not to be frightened. The police have been called
The
for.
police? Oh, George, what is it? Tell me at once what's happened.
Well, it's something quite unpleasant. Mrs. Sutton...
Oh, George, for pity's sake.
Oh, ma'am. Oh, I beg your pardon, sir. I didn't know you were home.
What is it, Mrs. Sutton?
They caught her, Mrs. Thomas.
Caught who?
The poison woman.
They did? When? Where?
It was a young man at the grocer's from Amagansett, and they caught her. Isn't it wonderful?
Isn't it wonderful, George? They've caught her.
Oh, I was so wild to think about her running around loose. She got herself a job as housekeeper to 2 elderly ladies. They found the poison on her. Well, if you'll excuse me, ma'am, I want to run up the block and tell my girlfriend. Oh, she's been ever so worried.
Ethel, that cocoa last night,
Yes?
I had it analyzed.
How dared you?
Why did you want to kill me? Is there someone else?
A long time ago, I said, George, I said, can't you eat one meal? Can't you even eat a slice of toast without... I warned you, George. I said, George, I can't stand to hear you digest one more meal. I'm sensitive. Everyone knows I'm sensitive. You heard Mrs. Dean. She said there's no one else to play Camille. Bob is going to be Armand. I think she suspects, though, George. She said there was a girl in his life. After all, George, I am much closer to Bob's age than I am to yours.
It's too bad Bob wasn't aware of it.
What do you mean?
Last night, your Armand eloped with the girl for whom he's been neglecting his studies.
It's not true, George. It's not true.
It's in the morning paper.
But he couldn't. Well, we were going to play Camille. We were going to start rehearsing. But... George. Police. You sent for the police. Oh, George. How could you?
Remember, you're always right with Auto-Lite.